know, again,
I
I'm
don't know where Mary
so
Dale.
far out in the country that I don't know much goes on.
I can't think of it. Who else is coming from this board?
Well,
Did anyone else? Mary Dale?
but no.
So you didn't rush our work.
All right. We'll call the meeting to order.
Yeah, you don't have to.
And at this point, we don't have a quorum.
So we won't be acting on the minutes, I guess.
Well, without a quorum, we're not able to conduct a meeting.
Well, this is not only rate that's off the CAD, so this is.
We can't
Yeah,
take, we can't vote on
it's not
it.
just. Yeah. But we're going to.
You can go ahead, I guess, have the meeting without making any,
Yeah, just can't take any
can't
action.
take any action.
We're going to do a third, 300 foot table.
Yeah, let's start with roll call.
About one of every four. On the board.
If folks are starting the meeting,
Ms. Barbeck.
yeah, they'll have the gavel
Okay, roll call, Roger,
here.
no one's gonna be here, I'm not gonna move down. Mary Jo,
Might as well.
F. Graham here, Rod is absent, Sarah is not here, and Ann Rude. I'm here. Okay,
Do you have anybody join us on Zoom? Is Sarah on Zoom?
There's not anybody.
Sarah here.
Yeah. No?
Okay, so, we will not be able to act on any business, but we can hear everybody, and
We can still go through the presentation.
if Sarah gets here, we come back for a minute. Yeah, there's no reason.
Okay? All right, so we can't do approval of the consent agenda or the minutes. So the very first item on the agenda. Oh, that's right. Do we have any citizens' comments?
On matters not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda.
Okay. Can you,
Hopefully another agenda.
can you come up here, please, so we can get you on the microphone?
Okay. I'm used to just leaving this in your hands.
All right?
I do, here,
Yeah,
Call me
that's fine.
Sarah?
You're fine.
that what the truth is.
Hi, Becky.
Hi.
And we just need to have you identify yourself. We all know who you are.
Betsy Scanlon, citizen, resident of Ward 1,
Mhm.
block from Lions Park, which I love, and I appreciate everybody that's here and not here on the Parks Board for all their parks work, because I think parks are really important. So, to the point, ever since the Ice Club was, generously donated funds, or put the spotlights for the night activities, which have been great. You know, it's really fun to see all the hockey tournaments there, and we think it's a great use of the park. And whoever's here for the Ice Club, I think you deserve a lot of credit. But, however, those spotlights are floodlights, and we brought this to their attention early on, and offered to pay for some shields so that the spotlights could concur with when I was on council. Commercial enterprises were required to keep their lights shielded on their lots. We live a block away with our bedroom facing these spotlights, and we thought, would it be possible to put shields on them? So I am just very mercifully asking for your assistance and offering to pay for the cost of putting shields on these spotlights so that Gretchen on that side and the people down on Adams, or on Hauser, do not have to live with these. And I appreciate that they go off at 10. They've been very good about that. But they wouldn't, to my mind, have to go off at all if they would just stay on the park's property and follow the intent of the city to keep light pollution from going into the neighborhoods.
Okay.
So I'm here to ask that. Please put that on your agenda to consider putting some shields on those lights during construction this summer, perhaps. If you need funds to do that, be happy to consider donate for that purpose. But anyway, this has been like 3 years in the making, and 3 years of, some of you go to bed after 10,
Okay.
but some of us go to bed before 10.
All right, well,
And so we would like to see some action on that request.
all right, thank you.
Do I need to put it in writing or anything?
No,
Okay.
Thank you,
Betsy.
We'll get taken care of.
I imagine it's gonna come up here in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks so much.
Any other comments from
And
citizens?
come back.
Any more comments from citizens? Okay. Okay, we're gonna move into discussion items. The, first discussion item we have is a report, from the folks from the tennis and pickleball courts with an update. And, Barb, would you like to
Okay.
start it off?
And I think,
Barb, I have the layout
yes,
of the tennis courts at Paul Myers Park. I can put it on the screen if you'd like.
oh,
Yeah, and
okay.
Barb, if you don't mind sitting at that chair,
Oh, okay.
anybody doing a
Dave.
presentation,
You want these two?
Mayor asked if we would just.
Yeah, and I've got those.
I know we don't have some of the other.
Yeah.
I'll take one.
You need one. Front row gets it.
Check out a copy of the,
Get your calendar straight.
If you need extras for the audience, you can come steal this back, I won't take it personally.
I probably should look at it myself as I'm speaking, thank you.
Okay, Barb back for your recording. So this is just a briefing paper, just to update you. We came 2 months ago, I guess it was. Ann, you weren't on yet.
It was a month ago.
A month ago, okay. And we're happy to come, I assume pickleball, happy to come when you need an update. So we've been meeting every 3 weeks or so, and I've got on here who's representing. We think we have a pretty good cross-section of people interested in this issue to be at the table, but if there's interest that we're missing, that's a welcome thing, we'll take them on. So, we think we finalized what our alternatives are, and we've got a location near the high school for 4 new tennis courts, and then Field School Park would have 6 pickleball courts, 1 tennis court, and in the interim, while we're still trying to get tennis courts built, there would be 2 tennis courts available at Field School Park. And we had Jody Adams from U.S. Tennis Association come and talk about their grant programs. They will fund up to $35,000 per new court for construction. New courts are probably gonna cost about $150,000 apiece. Yeah, it's not cheap. But we're excited, and there's every reason to think we'll qualify for that full amount. Plus, there are some additional smaller grants. So our group is intending to raise that money. And, I've started looking into the application. Jody Adams with USTA lives in Billings now, and she's responsible for like the western United States. And she says, I'm at your beck and call to help you with any of these steps in the process. So we'll be able to draw on her. We are gonna work with Beartooth RC&D as a fiscal sponsor. The city is a member of RC&D, and so is the county. It covers the 5-county area. Those services are free to us to serve as our fiscal agent, so we won't have to come up with any extra money there. Pickleball, do you guys wanna just speak for yourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I think that the only other thing was I said fundraising for the tennis courts is gonna start later this spring, and then you guys can talk about your efforts there, and I've got contacts on here for both tennis and pickleball.
Very good.
So any questions? Yeah.
So the question is to the mayor, you would be looking for our full board to make a recommendation to the city to approve that location. That would have to go through council. Right?
So, Mike, I have a related question, and I haven't heard this, and I haven't sat and talked with Mike's input. I think I already know what the answer is. There were 2 different flavors of this we looked at. One is it retains city property, which if it's city property, to your point, what we would need to do is we would do a resolution of intent, and then a resolution which would follow a recommendation from this board. The secondary option, which I think is probably preferable from a city standpoint, unless Mike tells me otherwise, is that we pursue the option where what we did is we leased this to the school and it was their land.
Mhm.
And Mike's telling me, yes, I'm right. So I think that's a little bit different process. Now, they still have to come to the city council to get approval of what to do with it. But I think the course of action that we want to take is to begin to prepare this as a lease for the school. And then the school comes to us and says, what we'd like to do is build tennis courts on it, and goes from that standpoint. Which I don't know if that process comes to the parks or not. I certainly don't have a problem with it, because I think we're all on the same page, and that's the most important part, is to ensure that we are. But I think the starting point is what we do is we start the lease, getting that over to the high school.
Okay, I think that the Parks Board we answer to a lot of users for that area, so we would have to have, maybe tennis,
Public meeting or two.
come
Yeah.
up with maybe a joint meeting with golf specifically,
With what?
Sure.
frisbee golf.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because there are some locations that need to be located, and maybe they get included in this conceptual idea.
Yeah. So, question? So if I'm understanding you, you'd go ahead and lease it before we even constructed the court?
We have to, so yeah, if you were gonna build a house on land, you'd have to buy the land before you could build on it.
Right,
What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a lease to the school district,
because they will own the courts
because
ultimately.
they're gonna own the courts, and
Okay.
that puts, the reason for that is that puts ongoing maintenance, et cetera, under
Right.
their shield rather than ours.
Mayor, has this proposal come up to the school district board, the school board?
Yeah, well, I don't know if, I've not gone to the board, but we've had this discussion with members of the school board and also with the school board president.
Terrific.
But like I said, that's, as I'm looking at this, it's kind of what I got is, what I just took down in my notes is, it sounds like everybody's on board with this for the location, reach out to the school
Yes,
board
this
and get
guy
this going with council.
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot of fill
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get it in there.
Yeah.
I mean, at least 10,000 yards, which.
Yeah.
It's gonna, you won't build them for 150,000.
Okay.
But also, make sure to include parks so they can coordinate with other activities such as disc golf.
Yeah, I think this is the preferred location. However, in light of what Mike is saying, this could drive up the cost of the
Mhm.
project quite a bit. So
I think, and I see it on there, but I'd invest some money in some geotech.
Oh, we have to.
Before
Yeah.
anything.
Yes.
Because,
Yeah.
you don't wanna find out after you
Yep.
hold in a bunch of fill.
Yep.
this is a,
So,
go ahead.
Barb, how does, so that means that the school would be in charge of these courts? How does that-
It becomes a school project.
It's no different than the football field, right?
Correct, but it's
Okay.
still available to the community.
Yeah.
But like, if you wanted to schedule it, you would schedule through them. Go ahead, speak, say your thought.
That's amenable to the,
The only scheduling might just be when the tennis team is
Yeah.
out there. Other than that, it'd probably just be open to whoever
Okay.
gets there first.
Yeah.
So we will need probably to start applying for the money to have the lease executed.
Well, the lease is gonna be $1. The lease is not gonna be,
I know, but we have to have an entity that's gonna own them, probably in order to.
I'm missing something.
If they lease
They won't own
the
it.
property,
We will
City
lease it
will
to the
still own
school
it.
district
The
for
school-
$1.
Right,
it'll become a school district project once the lease is
right.
effective.
That's all I'm saying,
Yeah.
is we need to know who the project is on
Yeah.
behalf of when we go for the grants.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you proceed with the grant process without having the official
I
approval
don't
by the
know
school
yet, I'm not
district?
that deep into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may have to get the approval of the school district
Yes,
before proceeding
Yeah.
that way. Okay. Any other questions? Looks like we have a little work yet left to do
Yep.
on this. Okay, how about pickleball?
Yeah, I'm Dennis Stevens, I'm from Luther, I'm not a city guy.
Can you come up here?
But we've been very busy with the pickleball club, trying to work on the project at Field School or Field Park. We currently have about 65 pickleball players in our system right now, with more to come. And so after much discussion, trying to figure out how we're going to configure that and also satisfy the tennis people as well as the pickleball people. Originally, I think maybe you saw a rendition or a diagram that would have had one tennis court and 6 pickleball courts. We rethought this over the last week and have and you've received it, I've read, is to keep the one pickleball or tennis court as is, second pickleball or tennis court, which is really the only 2 working tennis courts because of the asphalt fill on that one side. And that would be part of our project. And then on the second court, we will do just as we are doing now. We'll use it as to put our portable pickleball nets in that when we have an overfill.
Mhm.
Then alongside, as you can see in the diagram, there'd be 4 dedicated pickleball courts. And those pickleball courts would, which I think would favor most people, including the tennis, is that we'll have 4-foot fences around the pickleball court, each one.
Okay.
Which is very typical in the pickleball world. And that way the balls don't go from one place to another place and into the tennis courts, the rest of it.
The 4-foot-high dividing, chain link fences between the courts.
I don't know if I can say between the courts, around each court would be, yeah, so there would be, so it'd be totally enclosed, does that make sense?
Oh, each.
Yeah, you wouldn't have 4 of them together. There's an individual with a little
Okay.
gate, the rest of it, and that's kind of pretty much, vanilla and for a high level pickleball facility. Go ahead.
Is ICE talking about using the same area? Was there
No.
communication about that? No. Okay, because then the fences would be an issue.
And then our project will also include the fixing of the current fence that we have around the thing. There's some damage that's been done, and it's going to have to do also getting some high quality screens up on that. So we don't have a hard number yet, but we're somewhere between the $60,000 and $80,000 number for this project. We have a preferred contractor that we know of, but we know that there's also a process. And I believe he's coming out on April 10th to meet with Mike, Jeff, another one of our members who's an engineer who did the CAD system. Fundraising started about a week ago. We've got probably somewhere, I'm in charge of fundraising, somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 pledged by some lead gifts. Another $10,000 has been pledged for a matching grant lead. So we haven't, that does not include the pickleball community except for 2 pickleball people. I went out to some out-of-town people, some other areas, and they've committed to it. 2 of those individuals have come back and said, if you need any more, let us know. So we think we're going to, and our plan is, if it's, again, I don't know anything about city, Barack, I don't know anything about it, that even if we get to $50,000, we're going to borrow the rest of the money and do the project that way, and then pay off that through the pickleball club.
Mike, what do you suggest should be the next steps in toward
We're
this
gonna meet
project?
with this.
Russ, I can't remember what Russ's last name.
Thursday,
Yeah, April 10th.
and kind of go from there. But there is a spot that, is gonna have to be addressed before anything gets done, where I think there's no foundation in there or something. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to dig that up.
Mhm. I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago, the city came out and for $800 and put a bunch of asphalt on that northwest corner, right,
Yeah.
right, and that's been sitting there and it basically is unusable. So I think that's what you want to address.
No, and one of the guys, when they were doing that,
Oh.
they shoved the spud bar
Oh,
all the way down,
Yeah.
and
Big
then
sinkhole there.
all the way to there.
It's not,
Mine shaft.
it's gonna
It's very,
require
it's a very soft spot.
okay.
I heard one comment in there that caught my attention. You were talking about, Gold collects money and then finance the rest. There's gonna be some things we'll need to work with, so if we're financing something that's not a city project slash structure on city-owned land, there's probably gonna be a few check boxes we have to make sure.
Well, as I mentioned, I don't know the process, and if we, you know, we can't, but I think we're gonna get there without it, but you know how that goes, Mayor, you just don't know. There seems to be a big appetite for this.
Do you understand my concern or what?
I understand your concern. Yeah, we can't borrow money on something we don't know.
If somebody has a claim
Mhm.
against
Yeah, we're.
something that is basically city property.
Mayor, are we at the point we need to start drafting some type of agreement with, you have a formal.
Well, that's a great,
No,
great question.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question.
Yeah, in fact, I have preliminary ones here, but we're gonna, officers, our bylaws have been drawn, and so we're gonna agree on
You're
them at night.
applying to the state for a 501c3?
We are not
Applying
gonna,
to the Foundation for Fiscal Partnership, so we don't have to do that.
yeah,
We use their umbrella.
Okay.
we're running all of our donations through the
So
community.
then, if we have a memorandum, if we have an MOU with the city, it would be with RLACF, and their insurance would cover any events that you have.
I'm not positive about that, Beth.
Yeah,
How
because
that works,
fiscal sponsorship is different than an organization that has control of events.
Yeah, I think you're looking
And
at,
liability,
Yeah, that's a good question.
so I would
Does
talk
it
to
sound like it
them.
compares to the soccer venture in a
Well,
lot of ways?
it compares to baseball, it compares to soccer, yeah. I mean, so it's city property, but if you're gonna operate as an organization, there are requirements that the city has for liability insurance.
Yeah.
And so then you need to be an organization, not just a group of people.
well, I think we're really looking at two agreements, and we need one agreement with probably the foundation, you know, for the, I guess maybe the development of the project, a separate one for the organization that's gonna be, you know, running the tournaments or whatever you're gonna be doing out there. To cover the city's
So
liability and some other issues.
soccer was a 501c3 when they built the soccer field.
Mhm.
They raised all the money. If you ask the city to raise money, then you have to have engineering, and there's requirements for the city to do. You're looking to do it on your own, that's okay. We also did fiscal sponsorship, Martha,
Yeah,
as a way, not for their 501c3, well, yes, 501c3 status to do taxes on
right,
the money we collected.
right.
So we use them in that manner. We also use them in ability to use like their PayPal accounts or their credit card accounts to raise money and have people directly, you know, raise funds that way, like a GoFundMe type thing. Because soccer wasn't set up to do that,
And who do they use for that?
RLACF.
And I'm
So
not
that's
sure,
what the fiscal
That's
sponsorship
what
will
they're
do
gonna
for
do,
you.
too.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how long-term the fiscal sponsorship will need to be,
Yeah.
because basically we're doing it in order to raise
Fundraise,
funds.
right.
We may or may not need to continue it past the fundraising part, I don't know.
And it could be that when that is done, kind of like, and again, what I do is I compare them to different projects. When the pool was done, that comes back and that's just now a city thing. And so maybe this fundraising happens when it's done.
Oh, yeah,
Here, Mike, this is now your responsibility to maintain going forward.
that's been our thought. We don't want any ownership of it, or, we wouldn't have any ownership.
right.
Or anything, and we just wanna do it because you've said that for liability and for us to have matches, leagues, all the rest of it, it's gonna be used by the broader, Red Lodge community as well as visitors and the rest of it, which we welcome.
It would be just like Moose Trails, only for grown-ups.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but,
Well, I would
that?
really like the city, and this isn't aimed at you, I'd like the city to define what user groups need to have these big liability policies. That's in perpetuity. That's to use the event area. It isn't just during fundraising. So baseball is required to tell the city what their liability insurance is. And it's $1 million because they have players. I don't know if it's youth sports versus adult sports, I really don't know, but I would like the city to define that, because as we get
Yeah.
into things with golf, wanting to hold events, ice holding events, right now, it's my understanding that the two entities that have these insurance policies are soccer and baseball.
Okay.
And those are the only ones, and that doesn't seem,
Equitable and
consistent.
fair, yeah.
Oh, and the Whistler Observatory. So, I mean, these are things that need to be defined so that we don't run you down a rabbit hole that maybe you don't need to go, and maybe the rest of us can back off, but
Okay.
I don't think so.
Well, I think, I think we're mixing two things. I mean, we're talking about the development of the facility, and then we're talking about the programming of the facility. I mean, that could be used as a
They
drop-in.
have bylaws,
Yeah, but
Roger,
I know
they're
they do.
developing.
I know,
and
but they're gonna be an organization, they're gonna be hosting tournaments or running
Yeah,
programs there.
yes,
At that point, they should have an MOU with the city
Yeah.
that does talk about liability insurance and other responsibilities. The facility itself could also be used as a drop-in facility. I could be not a member of your association.
Oh, yeah.
If the court's available, I could go down there and play.
And who would cover that liability?
Well, that's just under the general,
They're
the
not
city's
covered.
general liability, there's no
They're
cover.
not covered.
That'd be like.
So I can go back to Moose Trails.
Yeah,
right?
like
Because
playground.
Moose Trails is a playground, it's a park. We don't have an MOU with somebody, that's all city's responsibility. You we have an MOU with, so that may be one of the, I think it's a meeting not to be had for now, but I
Yeah.
think I wanna pull you in and
That's a
with the city
program,
attorney and sit down and look at it.
that's programming liability in an MOU. But that is something we should talk about. We need to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Because I hear where this, I understand where this pickleball ends up. It ends up like Moose Trails, it's just a facility that the city maintains.
Just like-
No, there isn't an MOU, there isn't a group, or there isn't an
Like it
association.
is now.
Yeah, like it is now.
But you probably want, like, first right of, use, and it's called, you'd be a user group for that. If they become a user group for a park.
Now you're getting closer to an MOU.
Yeah.
Right.
If they're just
And then
saying,
they
we're gonna
have
pay for the,
priority.
if we're gonna pay for the monkey bars in Moose Trails, have at it, then it's not.
Yeah. I think we need to focus on
Mhm.
the construction and the development of the project first, and then.
Any other questions about the path that we're on now with the fundraising?
Yeah.
We're hoping to get that, because 2/3 of this is gonna be tennis courts. So I've reached out to only one tennis players, but we're hoping to get them on board to, not only support this, but to financially help us as well to raise money, because this will be, the 2/3 of the ground is tennis.
The only issue I think that, well, not the only other issue, but one issue I think we need to discuss is during the development and the construction of this, are we gonna have tennis courts available for the high school tennis court, or tennis team?
Well, no, it's good, there'll be a, you'll know more on the 10th
Are
of
they
April.
usable now? The two whites, are they usable now?
Yeah.
For tennis,
Yeah.
so that's not gonna change, right?
Well, we're gonna resurface it, and we're gonna do,
Yeah.
and put
We're
screens
gonna
around.
resurface the whole area.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's our intent. Yeah, to resurface everything and,
I think, Dennis, the question was, when would you do that? Not during school tennis season.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Then it have to be scheduled, so it doesn't,
yeah, and I think they're done June 1st, I believe.
high school tennis.
Yeah,
about
Yeah.
that.
or before.
And I, on all these nice days, I haven't seen anybody out there yet from the high school tennis this year.
They're all shoveling snow.
What's that?
Yeah, they're practicing.
Oh, are they out here?
And Dennis, with the exception of the mystery sinkhole, you're saying that you have estimates, Martha, too, of $50,000 to be able to resurface this entire area?
That, that's a soft number. I'm not gonna repeat that, only because that's a gentleman out of Billings who I'm familiar with, who's done Ellis Park and some other people and people's homes. And again, two last points I wanna say, and I know, Mike, I'm not gonna be there next week, is that, there's different ways you can coat tennis courts and pickleball courts. And we're going to the quality spongy, I can't tell you exactly what the product is called. We're gonna hope that we can call that product out on the spec. The other issue is it's easy to, paint and make that court nice, tennis and pickleball, it'll look pretty for like 6 months, and then the cracks will appear, et cetera. So what I'm really concerned, I've been telling the other guys, I've been involved in this in Arizona, if the cracks aren't treated properly and done properly at the beginning here, they're just gonna come up again.
Sure.
And so we need to do that too. But yeah, he said 50, in my fundraising, I'm telling people 80.
So speaking of the cost of resurfacing those tennis courts, this is gonna be a city project, Mike, that will have to go through.
We'll be involved.
So, the city will have to go through city purchasing requirements and bidding process.
We're gonna have a meeting next week and figure out which way we're going,
Okay,
and I can't answer that right now, how
Okay.
it's gonna flow.
that's coming out in the next meeting, hopefully, huh? Okay, all right, any
Okay.
other questions?
Anything else?
Pickleball or tennis courts?
I think on all of these, we've got some really good examples to look at historically. So in a minute, ICE is gonna be getting up and talking.
Yeah.
To me, ICE compares like to the skate park that went in. You know, do we compare it to the skate park? Do we compare it to the pool? Do we compare it to Moose, right? There's two, or the soccer field. That consistency and repeatability is,
Mhm.
every decision we make has that in mind. We want to be able to do the same today, tomorrow, and 4 months from now for something we haven't even thought of yet.
Except at the skate park, you really don't have an organization, do you, an association using that facility? It's kind of a
But
drop.
there's a group that came together and put together the funding, and then when it was done, they said, here, city, maintain.
Right, but they don't program it, do they?
No,
Correct.
they don't program
And
it, and
they
they
don't
didn't get a
host it.
dollar from the city, they raised it so that they could stay.
But they don't
you
host
know.
events and they don't run programs.
And I don't know that I'm hearing that the pickleball is necessarily gonna do that.
Well, I think they are, if you're gonna have, or if you can have tournaments and lessons.
We haven't ever done anything.
We never
like
have done anything, but I think, you know,
that.
I think,
That would be all new.
could I see us doing round robins and stuff like that there?
Okay.
Yeah, I think I could, but also, whenever there's been a visitor there, which happens in the summertime, just even with the way we're makeshift right now, we get a lot of them. And we have, both on the Facebook page, and we have a Team Reach, which is a reservation system, tells you when the games are, who's playing, et cetera. We get them hitting that up all the time. And skiers that are in town right now, I played with one this morning indoors, but several of them, so, you know, there's a group of them, of those people too.
But you don't foresee an organization hosting tournaments there, running
I don't
tournaments on the
know.
courts?
I mean, I
That's
really
a
don't.
great question, Brad. I don't want to say no, because, I
Or
don't,
if they did, would it just be a land use application? Hi, I want to use the
Could be.
pickleball course
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, that might be.
yeah. Great question, whether people would come down from Billings and we would host something, you know, I don't really answer that. Right now, we're just trying to get, some usable pickleball courts and resurface that, but we do want to be sure we, look at all those items and cross all of our Ts and dot all of our Is, and, whatever needs to be done. And if you are thinking that has to go to a 501c, that information would be really valuable, because I know that's a, you know, that's a process.
Mhm.
And we weren't, and if you don't want us to have an association or do the bylaws, we haven't done them yet, we have samples. You know, we can just become a bunch of pickleballers that hang out together and,
Sure.
you know, what's that, and don't have any.
We don't want that crowd hanging out.
It's pretty rough.
Well, any place that lets me play, you don't want to be with that.
Does anybody remember the guy who put together the skate park, Craig?
Kevin Volk.
Kevin?
Seven, yeah.
All righty, let's move on. Next item is Red Lodge Ice, Red Lodge Area Community Foundation Tourism Grant, and Tom, you're gonna lead this discussion, huh?
Okay, I, wear a bunch of hats, so I'll, try to keep my stuff, straight.
You have to turn that hat around once in a while.
So,
Start talking fire, we'll know you're off.
yes, yeah. So, there's probably a lot of complexities to this, and just, in concept. So I think we were actually trying to figure it out. There's been an ice rink in Lions Park longer than anybody can remember. Unfortunately, Betsy left, because I think Jeff was 3 or something when they started that ice rink there. So, so that area's been an ice rink for a long time. It really has upped the game probably in the last 20 years. And for the last 10 or 15 years, there's been a lot of talk of building that ice rink into a more stable winter activity spot. It's probably the most used city park in terms of time, energy, and effort, and the amount of use that it gets. It gets a ton of use. Maybe Little League would surpass us if we were really to start counting, but it would be probably pretty close. In terms of talk in resort tax, I also chair resort tax. There's been this idea that ice rink has been kind of on the the radar as kind of the next big, project. The Red Lodge Area Community Foundation and the Roosevelt Center applied for a tourism grant. It's a $2.5 million grant, that, we've had $1.25 million of it actually approved. In fact, it's a $2.7 million grant. 1.25 has been approved. The rest is a little dependent on our legislature, but we're hopeful that, we were battling back the folks who want to take money from the Department of Commerce the last couple of days and have so far been successful. But the hope is that grant will continue. The idea of the grant is, overall, is to provide infrastructure improvements and tourism to communities that are not Gallatin County, Flathead County, and really focused towards eastern Montana. And so we applied for that grant. We were successful in getting it. There's a couple of elements to the grant. The grant involves improvements to Beartooth Trails, improvements to the Roosevelt Center, potentially improvements to the chamber, potentially, so this, I'm going to bring this in, and Nick can jump in on this as well, is looking to try to develop a sledding hill in the community through the parks, probably, in the area where it kind of casually is right now. But with...
You mean the sanctuary?
Yeah, but with potentially snowmaking and using a snowcat to actually be able to manufacture it as a...
Just to clarify, around the perimeter of a soccer field, not across.
No, I got that, I'm just thinking of the hill.
Yeah. It's hard to have a snow sledding without the hill part.
I'm not worried about the middle. I don't think anyone wants to sled there. I'm just thinking of, we have a very delicate hill system.
Yeah, so that would all be part of the assessment, and maybe it's not there. Maybe
Yeah.
it's by the hospital, maybe it's someplace else, but the question is finding a location that it would work. Just identify it as a potential amenity that the community can use. The goal of the grant really is to increase winter tourism so that we're not so dependent on the ski area and snow at the ski area, and also provide additional things that people can do when the only place you can play pickleball is inside. So, that goal is that, we have lots of people who show up here in July.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of people here in March and April, right? In February, and so, November. So the idea is to build that piece. And so one of the core pieces of that is the ice rink as well. And the idea would be to build a solid base for the ice rink with, facilities and chilling. The idea being that we could have ice from Halloween to St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
So that's the holiday marker for ice skating. It's fairly realistic in our climate to be able to do that along with an outdoor rink. It would not be covered. There would be proper lighting developed within that. That is definitely a core piece of the design thing.
That was already in the plan.
Yeah, it was already in the plan. We recognize that those lights bother.
The lights that were there were put up for cheap, not for function.
Exactly, that's the problem.
Is the city involved in this grant?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other thing I will just kind of toss in, just because I know it's come up, there's been several conversations about this concrete pad and what are the potential uses, or what does that do the other times of the year, not Halloween to March. One of the things that has come up is there are places that do that, and they are pickleball courts in the summer, basketball courts, splash pads. So there's all sorts of different ideas there that have all, and particularly given its proximity next to Moose Trails. And so those are all possibilities, none of which that are have been decided on yet. I know I've heard it come up into this conversation a couple of times. It was floated as this is one of the things where people do with multiple uses for the rest of the year, because we also have farmers market, we have the art, so how do we make this compatible with all the other things? Ice is important, but not at the expense of booting everybody else out.
Yeah.
So Tom, would it be roughly the same size as the rink you have now?
That's correct. It would be the same, exactly, yes, roughly exactly the same size.
And the small rink you have, would you be?
Probably not. We would hope for the small rink. I think in a perfect world, we would have a small rink that we could use. There has been some talk to see if there would be possible in that footprint that we operate right now. So the current rink is about 80 by 200. Standard rink is 80, 85 by 200. So we're not looking to make it much bigger than what sits there right now. But, you know, when that park was built, they built that to hold water. They put a fire hydrant in to fill that pond with water. And that was done in, the 70s sometime, I believe, maybe 80s. I'm not exactly sure, before I moved here.
Prehistoric time.
Yes, a long time ago, long time ago, far away now. So the ground is designed to be like a pond and not really like a park, and so the idea would be, we'd grade it, we'd fix those berms that are put in there, which would open up some space. So potentially, in a perfect world, it would be built so you would have the ice rink and a small rink, both chilled, right next to each other,
Right.
that you could maintain so that it just provides more multiple uses. It would make it probably 100 by 200
Okay.
or 110 by 200 instead of, 225 by 85, it's same width, just slightly longer.
Mhm.
So one of the questions I've always had, I mean, and my husband would be lost without that rink. So I mean, I'm a supporter of that rink being there. What is the city, the community around that area and Lions say about a permanent concrete structure in an
No,
area
I
that's otherwise green space?
I think like, you know, like anything that happens, change is different, right? So there are some folks, I think in our just conversations, where we've seen the most resistance is that there was a dream that maybe it would be a covered rink at one point, which we believe right now to be pretty much cost prohibitive. And I think there were folks that were concerned about that. The most of the folks that were originally concerned about the loss, that doesn't really get any use except for, it got some young kid soccer use, but really that in the summer, the other uses for it end up being in the mud. And so they would be appreciative for it not being a mud hole, and because it doesn't drain, because it was designed not to drain. And so it's not a great spot for any of those uses. And so, you know, this would be a finished use. It would add concrete. But, you know, I think one of the points that I would make is that, you know, one of the reasons we see a little less use is we live in a place where we have lots of green space around us. And, you know, discovering green space isn't necessarily our number one desire in the community, because we've got an unlimited amount realistically. So providing recreation opportunities would be beneficial. You know, it's definitely, different people have different perspectives. And so you've have to balance that. But I think the key piece is to design it properly so that it looks right and is useful for folks to be multi-use.
I can add that conversations have included Lions Club up until this point, so they have been involved, they are aware of it. Most of the comments and concerns that I've heard had to do with the lighting situation. And then the other thing I would add is, this is just at the very start of a process. So we have just a very high level that came to council, but there will be an intent, you know, a resolution of intent that comes out in front of council, which starts that community conversation. So this is not a done deal. It is not designed. There was basically, is there enough traction on this to pursue it? That initial straw poll was yes. And so now we'll start the larger city, but Lions Park has been involved with it. And I will agree with Tom that I think there's a lot more people that were, there was half and half. Some people thought covered was the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Other people thought covered was problematic.
Yeah.
And fortunately, funding will probably solve that problem for us.
A lot of the folks who were looking forward to a covered pavilion that you could do Shakespeare in the Park outside with, you could do farmers markets under a covered thing that rain wouldn't, you know, there was you know, you could do a wedding, there was lots of folks, but, you know, Tom's stupid math tells you gonna be a lot that size cover is expensive, you know, and it can't be a steel building, right? If you put it downtown, it's gotta be a beautiful structure, which really is gonna drive that, you know, it's gonna be 3 times as expensive as the cheapest version, but I don't think anybody would want the cheapest version you could put up and put a cover over it.
You don't want a Quonset hut.
You do not want to.
You know, the other, I guess the other, issue, and this may not be an issue, but if we do this, and it becomes a reality, and has more of a multi-purpose aspect to it, that could, it's good and bad of it, that could increase the use of that area, which could be more traffic, more activity in the neighborhood, that might be some resistance. You know, if you have pickleball going on down there, or if you have.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of traffic in the winter already, and I think.
I'm talking about year round.
Yeah, you could see increased summer traffic.
Yeah.
There were some folks who lived in the neighborhood who didn't like the playground there because it increased traffic that didn't exist before the playground was there. But, you know, it's been a park for a really long time, and it really is the center kind of park for the community, and it really is it's in a good location, and by connecting all this stuff, we provide an ability. And, you know, folks have asked, would you put the ice rink up by the high school or out by the airport or something like that? And our answer has generally always been not our preference. You know, you never want to say no, but, and because a lot of the attraction for visitors is they drive by and see it,
Yeah.
and they see a family out there skating, and they're like, oh, let's go do that. That looks like fun. And if you hide it in the corner, you don't get the use. And the other thing is that, you know, community activity thing, if you're a 10-year-old and you're wondering what to do when you drive by and there's other 10-year-olds skating, then you go skate. Now you've got something to do that's a productive outdoor activity. And it is amazing the number of people who use that in the winter. I think, you'd love to see that multi-use thing, but I think really the strength of it is gonna be winter activity when there isn't as many things to do, and it provides that.
Sure.
And I think your point is valid, because there was a conversation I was in when somebody said, nobody's against this, who's against it? And my response was, give me a map, I will show you exactly. Because there is a not in my backyard element, which is
Sure.
always true, and
You
something
always
we have
have
to
it.
deal with.
Well, thank you, Tom. Any more questions for Tom?
Well-
But,
Yeah, and I had
Yeah.
told Nick that he could hop in just to, like, summarize something quickly, and we'll add you on the agenda another month.
Okay.
If you need more time.
Yeah, I
Talk
mean,
about the tourism grant,
Yeah.
Questions?
a quick update, Tim?
just to, continue on, our plan in this grant is on the second half of the grant, which we do not have funding for right now, so all of this is contingent on, actually receiving that second half of funding. But that, we would develop a, sledding hill, there'd be a snowmaking system, at Coal Miners Park. This is just, again, the wildest dream. It's not, we have not really thought of it a whole lot. There's been no studies done, but it would be a snowmaking for sledding on Coal Miners Park, where there currently is, unofficial sledding hill, and then a loop for Nordic skiing at the top of the Coal Miners Park that it would go on the footprint of the existing trail. That there would be a close to town access point for people to go Nordic skiing, be open to the public. Ideally would have lights that keep it lit until the folks who go after work in December, early January. And again, it would make us look, there'd be more for people to do close to town, make us more of a package in the wintertime. So, and then there's money set aside for studies, engineering studies, drawings, but that is it. Mike and I talked today about it, and we might look at other spots, but that is just one initial option, so.
I can tell you go ahead.
Just one quick question. Do you have any kind of a time frame in mind?
Yeah, we do. So, and I think the grant drives a little bit of time frame. It would be planning this summer, and then phase 1 construction the following summer, 2026. And
Post Labor Day.
Yeah. So, and then, probably phase 2, which hopefully would be complete in 2027. So, and what phase 1 is, would be just groundwork, make it flat. It looks flat now, and it's flat by every engineering term. It falls about 1.5 feet over 200 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're filling it with water, 1.5 feet on 200 feet is a lot.
Yeah.
And so, the first thing would be to make it flat, so we could get the same way we build ice today on top of it, but if we know we're gonna go to concrete, it would be actually engineered flat. And then build a building that would ultimately store Zamboni and snow removal equipment, as well as then the compressor for the ice. And then that phase two would be actually install the compressor for the concrete and then finish the project.
And
So
the grid work for the refrigeration would be laid on top of the ice?
it's inside the concrete.
It's inside the
It's
concrete?
inside the concrete.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep. Yeah.
Way to do it.
So that's the,
Any other questions?
are your Parks Board meetings always this fun, or?
Yeah, yeah.
We have some very ambitious.
We need a bigger.
I don't know
room.
what that meant, Tom.
I think this is exciting. I mean, you got the community coming wanting to build pickleball courts, ice rink, sledding hills. I mean, that's like,
Snowmaking.
snowmaking, that's a lot of energy and effort into outdoor recreation in a small town. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd see a Zamboni in another one.
Exactly. And if anyone wants to know how we're funding this, we're just gonna sell tickets to drive the Zamboni.
Oh,
I'll pay for that.
Hey,
Hey, Mayor, as a point of order, we have a
You're
quorum.
half serious, right?
Can we?
I'm only half
can we
serious.
open the meeting
No, but you
back up
are.
Yeah.
And make it official, or should we?
I leave that to your discretion. Does anybody know in Robert's rules if a quorum shows up halfway through?
Yes, you can. You
Yeah,
can.
so
Okay.
your discretion if you'd like
Okay.
to. You have 5
Yeah.
minutes left, no.
Yeah.
At
We are
least
getting
get your
close.
minutes approved.
Right, I'm gonna open the meeting up as an official meeting now that we have a quorum, and we can go back and do the approval of the minutes and in the agenda.
Will you go ahead and do a roll call again, just so you?
Yeah, we
can-
do, yeah, please do.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make one, can I take off a hat before you, if I do need to run, and I apologize for that, is that, I want to put on my Chair of the Resort Tax Committee hat, and just, as you guys go through the next couple months, we have asked the mayor to provide us with direction and detail about resort tax expenditures, as well as future, but also past, like, you know, from the money that's been allocated, you know, what have you accomplished, and then what do you hope to accomplish in the future, so.
Okay,
Thank you, sorry.
thanks. All right, roll call.
Roll call. Sorry, Roger.
Here.
Here. Mary Dell, no. Beth Graham, yes. Rod Fordahl, no. Sarah Thorson.
Yes,
We appreciate you coming after work.
late, yeah.
Ann Rude. Okay.
Okay. All right, we're gonna proceed on with our discussion items. The next one is the Whistler Observatory Tree Planting Light Screen Proposal. Teresa and Doug,
Well, I can.
you're gonna,
Yeah, I can, put up the presentation.
okay,
Yeah, my name's Doug Reynolds. I'm part of the observatory or the Red Lodge Dark Skies. I am a botanist, so I've been working on the living fence idea that I want to talk about. This is an actual picture taken in the evening out at the observatory, which is here. You can see what our incredible dark skies allow for the Milky Way. You can also, however, see the glare from the lights on the county buildings over towards the airport, which is what we want to address. Until relatively recently, I always thought that binoculars and microscopes and telescopes did the same exact thing. They magnify a small object and make it large enough so that we can see it. But when you actually think about it, the telescope does something else that's very crucial. The mirrors in it collect light, and one of the reasons you can't see something is because it's too small, but also you can't see it if it's too dim. So in addition to magnifying, the telescope also collects light. The bigger the mirror, the more light can be collected, and therefore you can see dimmer, more distant objects. That's why I'm here again, like some of the other groups, to talk about unshielded lighting and the problems that it can cause. Okay, if we can go to the next one. Here's a picture looking north. If you turned around in the previous picture and looked north, here's the lighting that exists today. None of those lights were on until after the observatory was built. Sometime after it was designed and built, the commissioners decided that the lights were to be on 365 days a year, all night. Okay, that creates a problem. Not only does the glare interfere with pointing telescopes in that direction, the glare also destroys the night vision, which is really important when you're looking through a telescope. It can take 15 to 30 minutes for your eyes to adjust to darkness so that you can then make out even more dim objects as you look through the telescope. Let's see what else, yeah. The Dark Skies Committee, through the Parks Board and through the city, asked the county for some simple solutions. Number one would be to turn the lights off for a couple of hours, one night a week when the observatory is open. Another alternative would be to put motion detectors or sensors so that the lights would come on if there were prowlers around or whatever, but otherwise it would be dark. So that would take care of any kind of security concerns. The other one that was mentioned by one of the earlier groups is to put shielding over those lights to reflect the light down to where it's needed. If you did that, you get brighter light using less electricity. The bulbs wouldn't have to be as high a wattage and so forth. And again, it should be effective in deterring any kind of vandalism or whatever. All of those recommendations were submitted to the county commissioners and were rejected. So we're now on to option 4, which is really what I want to talk about tonight. Go ahead to the next one. It would be to produce what's called a living fence. This is a simulation. These are Wichita blue Rocky Mountain junipers that have been pasted on to a view from the observatory looking towards those lighted buildings. We sort of put this streak here is sort of where the lights shine if the living fence isn't there. Okay, on to the next one, please. We're not talking about a huge area or impact. Here's the observatory building. The lights are across the road over towards the airport. Right here, these little 7 green dots would be where the living fence would be constructed. At maximum, it would be 20 feet long and maybe 8 to 10 feet wide. So it's a very small area, as you can see. There wouldn't be any snow drifting that would impact the road that's 125 feet away and so forth. Okay?
Does that view show a realignment of the pathway going to the observatory? Is that the existing?
That is the
It's
realignment.
realigned because right now, when people walk out, they're walking straight toward those lights and they're blinded.
Okay.
They can't even, they're staggering,
So-
going out.
So that's what it would look like?
That's what, it would come in from more of the side,
Uh-huh.
so that as you're approaching the stand, you could look in to make sure there's nothing hiding behind there.
Okay. All right.
like animals?
Like animals.
Or
I don't think
human
we have many jumpers around here, but you never know.
It's the hundreds of dogs that people walk up there, that's the biggest animal hazard.
Or
Poop landmines.
All right, our proposal is, and this is the alternative we've been driven to, and this is just an example here. This is one of my neighbor's house, and a juniper hedge that I don't know how old it is. You can see that they do grow very thickly, and they would block light. You know, everybody's familiar with a windbreak, but those generally aren't dense enough to shut out the light. These trees right here are about 8 feet tall, probably about 8 feet wide. This is far bigger than what we're proposing. Like I said, our living fence would be about 20 feet horizontally and about 8 feet wide, something like that. It would allow, the light doesn't only, blocking the light doesn't only affect using the telescopes. it blocks light for people who are walking around and so forth, and for people using the park, it would block seeing this industrial center, even
So
during the
why
day.
not make it a little bigger? Are you trying to keep it to a small
Well,
Just
yeah.
area for?
We're making it small
trees?
enough to be effective.
less impactful, but yet doing its job.
Okay.
Right, it would do its job for the observatory. Obviously, it would be cheaper and easier to maintain. Yeah, it would also,
Can I ask a question with that?
No, go ahead.
You still wouldn't be able to point your telescope north, really, because you point above the trees into the sky, and when you still
well,
have
it
the light,
dissipates, wouldn't you?
it improves what we've got today. Yeah,
Right.
because right now, if you can't even really look in that direction.
Yeah,
and line
okay.
it immediately. At least this would be high. Well, our telescopes are trained up high.
Yeah.
So it does help a lot.
Right, and this would
Okay.
probably be at maximum kept about 10 feet high. So if your telescope is down at 5 or 6 feet, you're able to aim it
Then
up
you're gonna,
without
yeah, okay,
getting, right.
that makes sense, thank you. We have 7-foot
Good
walls
question, though.
around the observatory.
Right.
and
Can I
we
ask
see up
a
above
question,
those.
though?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why did you, I mean, I'm sure you all have figured this all out, but I have questions. How did you come about selecting the Wichita juniper?
Okay, yeah, let's go to the next one. I think I've got it.
It's kind of dry out there, so what about water for
Right.
that particular juniper?
The next slide, Ann.
Yeah.
Oh,
See that?
Yeah.
Good question.
The Wichita Blue is a named variety, but it is the Rocky Mountain juniper and has all the characteristics. Rocky Mountain juniper is the native juniper here. It occurs a little bit higher than town, but like if you go partway up the ski resort road, where the trees start, if you go along some of the trails there, Rocky Mountain juniper is the dominant smaller conifer. They only need, once they're established, 10 to 12 inches of precipitation a year, which we get. Because it is a native species, it's deer resistant, it's tolerant to wind, drought tolerant and so forth. This is an example. The ones we're looking at are about 4 feet tall and about 18 to 24 inches wide. They grow about a foot in width and height a year, so for it to become fully effective would probably take 4 or 5 years after planting. But typically, once they're established, after the first year or two, they really shouldn't need much additional water at all. Additional water would help them grow a little faster. But one of the reasons we picked this species, and in fact, it was recommended by the experts at Blake's Nursery up out of Big Timber. They build a lot of windbreaks, and they sell a lot of native plants, and this is the cultivar. The only difference of it and the one that you find growing wild is it had been selected, the foliage is a nice blue-gray, which people consider attractive, but doesn't really matter to us. But it's easily available, there'd be no problem getting them in. As it talks about here, we're thinking we'd have 2 rows with a zigzag effect so that it would start working more quickly, maybe 5 or 6, or 4 to 6 plants in one row and another 2 or 3 to fill in the gaps. Overall, the entire living fence, as it says here, would be about 20 to 25 feet long and 6 to 8 feet wide, something like that. So it's not a big barrier. It's pretty much minimum size, but to be effective.
And how did you come up with this size? I mean, you stand up there and look at
Yes.
this, and you kind of
Yes.
said, this is what,
Yes,
Measured.
yes,
okay, all right.
yes.
And it seems kind of, I'm with Beth.
It does
seems-
feel small,
It feels small. but-
yeah.
But if you guys figured it out, that's great.
Well, you're right. It is, it's changing the vegetation of the park. I mean, it's bringing in something that wasn't growing. So we designed it to be effective, but with the least impact.
But at least it's a native species.
It is.
And I think part of it is they've moved it back away from the road, so the
Right,
closer it
yeah.
gets to you, the more it's blocking too.
Mhm.
It's like looking at a 70-inch TV 5 feet away versus 50 yards away.
You know, that's a good point, because I think the first time it was talked about having a living barrier there, you're really talking about planting right up by the road,
Right.
and it was almost that whole
Right.
length.
You'd have to worry about snow drift.
And, yeah, the concern was
That's a good point
snow
too,
drifting.
yeah, that's true.
And, you know, from my experience, I'm
they're gonna
hesitant about creating visual blocks in the parks, because when you can't look into a park, bad things happen.
Right.
And even in a town like Red Lodge, it can happen. And I think this is actually a much better, you know, much better plan than what you had at first.
Right, and it's actually smaller than the observatory itself.
Yeah.
It really is, little impact, but we think it would be just what's needed and solves the problem.
You want to continue on the slide, or do you need another?
I don't even remember.
Are larger trees an option to plant to get you to a solution more quickly? It's just more money, or do they not grow well if you're doing larger trees?
Larger trees are harder to get established. These 4-footers are the most readily available. That's pretty much what most of the nurseries stock. It's what's called a 15-gallon, so that's what the base would be, and that's about $230. I guess I've seen 6-footers and so forth, but you're more than doubling the price, much bigger holes to dig and water to get them established. But that would get things going quicker.
And what are you thinking of, with the water? Did you get a tank up there, one of those plastic tanks, temporarily?
I think that would probably be like
Would
once
that-
a month,
We're pros at that, right?
Yeah.
bring a tank up, or, you know, there are those water
His name is
bags
Mike.
that they use in town.
Oh,
Would you be using volunteers for
Yes,
that
completely,
effort?
everything.
Would it factor in the cost of a tank, or,
Well, I think we figured we could borrow it or find
okay.
it.
Is that just during the initial establishing years, eventually it wouldn't
Probably
need
a couple
water?
of years.
Yeah, probably they say for 2 years, and the more supplemental water you give it, the faster they'll grow, so that's important too. In general, what they say is you plant them, you water them in really well, and then once a month, a good soaking, would be more than enough.
and
So,
so, yeah, Don, I want to remind you, when we shovel off all the snow up there, we build up quite a pile. And it either goes, you know, north or south more than anything. So there's a lot of good water, slow
In the
melt in the
snow.
spring that would feed that for quite a while. So it'd only be a couple months worth of, you know, spot watering through the summer
Okay.
right.
for the first couple of
Right.
years to get it
And
by.
if it did act as a windbreak and some snow accumulated on one side or the other, that's a perfect water source when it melts off. And it's not gonna
You're
get,
gonna
right,
probably have
it's gonna
more
water
predominant
itself.
coming out of the north. I mean, we have more drifting from the
It
north. so
drifts
comes
right
towards
up there right now anyway.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Right, I think there's one more slide.
I think you could
Oh, yeah,
get
here's-
2 more.
Again, yeah, here's, again, a simulation of what we think it would look like from where the telescopes would be. Okay, and the last one, just a reminder of, what a public amenity we believe the observatory is. More than 450 or 420 visitors to date, including school groups and so forth. Even tourists from outside of town have heard about it and call up and ask, can they, you know, when's it gonna be open, and they can come up and take a look. So, again, we think it's an important benefit to the public. We're not asking for a major change to make it even more of a public asset. Any questions?
Does the city need to be involved, and the Parks Board make a recommendation?
The Parks Board will make a recommendation to the council. What would happen is the council would do a letter of intent. That opens it up for public comment, and then council does a final to do it, much like we did with the soccer field. And so anything that's a permanent structure or development on city land needs to go through that process.
Well,
And so the request from the Whistler Observatory is that the Parks Board makes a recommendation to the city council for approval of this project, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the request. Do we have,
Mike, do you have any comments?
I have a couple of questions.
okay, Mike?
How are you financing all this? Is it just donations?
Well, there are grants, small grants that, I guess, what was the figure? A couple of $1,000s is what we think the trees would cost. And there are some small grants, or we would completely fund it through private donation and volunteer labor.
I mean, it would, using some of the Parks Project money work for this? I think it would.
Yeah.
I wanna have the Parks
Feel
Board.
free to use it as an Arbor Day project.
There you
Yeah,
go.
well,
I wonder, yeah,
I
they,
think that's a great idea.
yeah,
yeah.
the city wants to bring its tanker truck up full of
No, I
water.
was gonna say, you know, a couple of things, if you wanted to, maybe the city kicks in some money through the Parks Project money, and you get some donations, get the bigger trees.
Mhm.
And like we did last year for Arbor Day, we can bring the mini X up, dig the holes.
Yeah, if you'd be willing to do that, that would be
That
incredible.
makes it easy. Those bigger trees, when you need a machine to plant them,
Mhm.
we did those big spruce last year.
Yeah.
And then certainly, like, if all they need, when we plant them, we could bring water up, that's no problem. And once a
We're
month,
talking about
getting
like
up
a
there,
6-foot tree
as
instead.
long as somebody would
Sure.
call me and remind me,
Sure,
we can get up there and give them a drink.
Yeah.
yeah.
We are gonna be really busy this summer, but it would probably only be once a month we can make.
Sure.
That'd be great.
That would be perfect.
That
We-
should be ideal.
We would also, like, we just saw the announcement for the community, grant through our LECF, and we had discussed possibly applying for that depending on what happened here tonight, whether or not this looks like it could go forward. But, the group that uses the observatory is extremely, keen on using it, enhancing it, making it a holistic asset for the community in that park. And so there's a lot of things we'd like to do to continue improving it, but this is the one basic thing that we see needs to be done to just hold on to what we have, right? And, we have such an enthusiastic group between users of the observatory and the Dark Skies group. We recently had, I gotta share this. We had an anonymous donation of $14,000 to buy and have assembled a new 24-inch aperture telescope up there. So this has got a life of its own, and this is something that we hope that you can support, the city can support in the way of protecting and enhancing this valuable asset. And thank you, Mike, for what you're offering as well in help.
I make a motion that we, recommend that the city approve, that it goes to the city, goes before the city council to approve, the planting of trees, and that, we will look into contributing through our Parks budget, Arbor Day.
Maybe we can
Project.
coordinate an activity or something.
I'll second it.
well,
Go ahead.
can I get specific? Because I
Yeah.
think we should either do the larger trees or 8. Like,
Yeah.
I think let's just go for it. If we're gonna do that, I don't know if we need to be specific when we present it. And then I'm also wondering, I think we got denied from Arbor Day for the tree removal.
I gotta
Okay,
wait.
okay, sounds good.
I guess one last thing that might concern some people, the tree is completely prunable. You can, prune it into a statue of the mayor if you wanted to. You can top it.
You need
All right, I'll
you need
shave.
some pruning.
Your dog at least.
These meetings are fun, aren't they?
But you can top it. In other words,
Yeah.
naturally, they grow 15, 20 feet high, which is more than we need. But, yeah, you can
It'll
top
keep
it,
it
which just
bushier,
makes
too.
it get bushier and keep it, less intrusive.
Yeah.
I think it should look like.
So let's go back to the motion. Between the two, you want to amend that motion?
No, I'm not amending, I have a question.
Well, the question is, I think the question is, do we want to recommend, I think Sarah asked, do we want to recommend?
I don't know if we have to get specific at
Yeah,
this
I wouldn't-
point,
I
but,
would just support the
Okay.
project.
Okay.
Support the
Leave
project
it at
goes
that.
to city council, they can.
great.
Okay,
make a recommendation.
So let's hear a formal motion then.
I made it.
I second
I wrote it down.
Suzanne.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion
My,
passes.
my concern is, I think, is it Doug?
Yeah.
I like the idea of having bigger trees, but you also said they're harder to get going. And I hate for us to get bigger trees just because we're in a hurry.
Right, exactly.
So whatever is best, you would know, but I am concerned that we might lose a tree or two if it's not the right condition.
That's probably a good point.
So,
Right, I'll talk to the nursery and
Yeah.
price the bigger ones, and so forth.
okay.
And I anticipate that would be part of the stuff you would present at a discussion for council as you're trying to get them to refine it.
Are you working with Blake on this project? Blake Nursery?
Yeah,
Okay.
And my motion for the bigger trees or 8 was just to ensure that you guys got the coverage that you needed, not,
If
Well,
we get to a
quickly.
solution sooner.
I mean, yeah,
If it can
that,
be done, if, and that was kind of the nature of my question. If the difference between this and that is dollars, that's more easily addressed. If the difference between this and that is, would there be a higher failure rate, the trees won't establish as well, then it's
Yeah.
not. But it's just, if it's one of those problems, and I'm old enough that I appreciate those problems in life that you can throw a little bit of money at and make them go away.
well, yeah, I think especially with the support of Public Works, I mean, one of the reasons for keeping the trees modest is to dig a 15-gallon hole and the amount of water. But if they're willing to help us with the digging and to truck some water up there, then that would make the bigger trees
Yeah.
much more feasible, and we would be able to water them enough to, ensure their success.
Mike's crew did an excellent job with that last year. It worked really well, so. All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna move on, and our secretary just informed me that we should probably go back, since we're having the official meeting now, and do the
Thanks,
approval
Doug.
of the minutes. And it says on our agenda February 5th, but I think it's really supposed to be March 5th, the March 5th meeting. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 5th meeting?
Can I make a motion when Sarah's not here?
Sarah left, huh? She coming back?
We'll have a quorum again shortly.
How about I second them, and we'll get her vote.
Okay. Does she go outside?
No.
Yeah, I know. All right.
She went to the bathroom, I think.
Yeah, she's not
Okay.
out.
All right, we're gonna move on. When she gets back, we'll cover that. Okay, the next item is the annual park workday, Arbor Day plans. And, I think this involves Sarah too, and Mike Maples.
She's right here.
Y'all may go back and do, kind of,
Give us
update
an
of where we're at.
Okay.
Number 5.
Sarah, actually, if we just get this out of the way right now, we just had, a
A motion to
motion and
approve.
a second to approve the minutes from March.
my only question, it says I was absent, but was I here virtually?
No, you were, the first one you were, the second one you weren't.
And you can still vote even if you weren't there, just saying you support the process. You don't have to be there to support it.
I know, but
You don't have to either.
if I was here, do the meetings need to reflect that?
Oh, God,
But
you're
I don't
saying-
remember, how did I
You're saying
miss
the notes
March?
may not be accurate.
I approve.
Sarah, you were not on Zoom last time.
Oh, yeah, I was late, I was on Zoom in February,
Yeah.
I didn't make it last
Yeah.
month, yeah,
But
and then
you
I was
weren't in
late
March.
today. Yeah, I gotta get someone to replace me.
Okay,
So we need a quorum to vote on it. Are you comfortable with voting on the minutes as presented?
Yeah, I did look
do
at
we
it.
have a second on it?
Second.
Second?
I did.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
All right,
now, Mike.
Mike.
All right, so park stuff for Public Works.
Well, the annual park work day and Arbor Day
I'm
plan.
gonna go back to number 5,
Okay.
so we'll get to the annual, unless you don't want it up.
No, let's go ahead, go with number 5.
So, we are gearing up with the pool. Aubrey's working on a schedule. There's gonna be, some changes this year, probably with, schedule for lessons, and possibly on schedule for pool hours. last year, I think we were open from roughly 7 to 7 days a week. That's nuts and extremely hard to staff, so I think we're gonna step that back a little bit. We still have to finish up getting the new heater, totally online. We did get the new pool cleaner. It's here in Red Lodge. And we're working on some new signage and a few other things, but, the ball is rolling on that, and, so we're anticipating, a June 1st opening day. We'll see if Mother Nature agrees with us. I don't think it did last year, but.
Is that typical, June 1st?
It sounds like that's what's aimed for.
Sounds like
Realistically, like, one of the changes we're making this year, we're gonna push the lessons back because last year, it was just too cold.
Yeah.
The kids weren't in the pool, so they're not getting good lessons.
So lessons won't start June first. The pool may open June first, weather permitting, but
We're
lessons won't
working
plan.
through this right now,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at. We don't wanna have, we want the kids in the water for swim lessons.
Yeah.
And last year, there were a lot of days they weren't, because it was just too cold out. So, we're not gonna fight Mother Nature. So that's kind of a pool update. Anybody has any questions about the pool as we go through it, just give me a call. With baseball's getting rolling again, we are gonna help out the baseball commission with finishing up the batting cages. They're doing all the work and they're supplying a fair bit of it. Park's gonna spend probably about $5 to pay for the netting to go around the cages, and in the end, I think we're gonna have 2 really nice batting cages down there, so it's a step towards the goal of making that baseball complex what it should be. I think the next phase going probably in the next year will be starting to try and work on those fields a little bit, just to give you a heads up and get them to where they'll drain a little better so they're not so bumpy and, so the sprinklers work a little better. I did meet with Tom and the disc golf folks, and, he presented, a request to help fix up some of the tee boxes and the baskets and stuff. I'm gonna take some of that Parks project money, unless the Parks Board strongly disagrees with it, and, help them out with that. They're gonna do all the labor, and all that stuff. We had a good meeting this week. Roger was there, on Pride Park, and we got the concept drawings back. They went over very well, I think. Very few changes were made, or suggestions to be made. And I think that project's moving along nicely. Right now, we're at a point where the architect's gonna incorporate our changes, get us a more polished drawing, maybe something computer version that's 3D, and then a budget, and then we can go look for money for that project. The tree grant did come through last month. I think I told everybody we didn't have a chance. But we got the small one, which is a scaled down version. It's about just under 20,000. So we will be moving forward with that. I'd like to get it rolling as soon as possible. We have to do some paperwork first to make sure that, we get reimbursed for everything. But I think that the tree planting that is involved with that, and I think the scaled down version, we were only putting back like 25 trees or something. But we can incorporate that into an Arbor Day thing, kind of like we did last year. I am gonna try to do, as part of that, I included in the grant, the arborist that we hired to remove the big trees. He is a certified arborist, which is a big deal, and, I'm gonna rope him into doing like a 1 or 2 hour workshop in the park on pruning, and so people can come learn how to properly prune a tree. That was one of the selling points for the grant, so we gotta do that. It's a good idea. So that was good news. As far as budget stuff, we're sitting pretty good on the parks.
When you're on the trees, is there any chance that we can add in the juniper?
I'm
Or
not,
it doesn't
I
make
probably
sense?
wouldn't try and do it on that grant.
Okay,
I think we have, I think we'll have, and, you know, it'll be a discussion with wherever those guys went, but, you know, I'll talk to the Whistler people and see what they're looking at, and we'll see where we're at on our project money. I think we can definitely help out with that.
okay.
I'd still like to see some donations from them, just to keep it all.
Mhm.
But,
Yep, okay.
in terms of budget stuff, everything in the parks project budget is sitting pretty good. We do have, I need to get with you about this. The Brewery Hill feasibility study blew up. I mean, it went way over budget. So, because we kept, you know, I think with the meetings and all the changes, we spent $22,000 out of the parks budget on that study. I know there was talk about we were gonna
Did
get
Beartooth
paid back
Trail-
for that.
Yeah, because there were, you're saying over and above the original 24?
No, I thought the price
No, I
was
thought it
like
was 10.
14.
I thought it
Oh, Well, because maybe it was 7 from URD and 7 from the, I was
So
thinking
we
it was right
we
around
gotta go
15,
collect that
17.
money, because that'll help put our budget back in good shape.
Trails was gonna contribute some too, I thought.
Pardon?
Beartooth Trails was gonna.
Yeah,
contribute
Beartooth
some.
Trails,
Yeah.
the HOAs did half and half, and so, yeah, we'll
So we
follow
gotta-
up and get
we gotta
taken
follow
care
up
of.
with that. Otherwise, you know, we're making a few minor budget changes. I'm starting budget process right now for next year. Parks had a few things, and I think they were good, where we overspent in some categories. But they were related to the fact that Willie's out there busting his hump.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
I gotta budget more fuel for him, more parts, more, you know.
Yeah.
So
They
they're
cost
good
more.
changes.
Cost more when you get things
Therapy,
done.
do you have to get him some therapy too? So Mike, I have a question, because I don't, Mayor called me. I know that soccer has mentioned a shed up on top, and I don't know that it has to come to the Parks Board. You may deal with it directly. My only input on that is that I think it should be at one end or the other, not in the middle. The people that donated a lot of money coming from non-soccer people, community people, I don't think we want to look at it. As you're up there, walking that trail, and you look across, that's like the best view in Red Lodge. And to have a shed sitting there in the middle, so that would be my 2 cents worth, is that we have maybe some input on location.
Sure.
So the question, and it actually started from somebody not on this board.
Right.
And so it needs to come to this board, and then the next question is it a temporary shed? In which case, then you can just coordinate with Mike, or is it a permanent structure, which is now the same thing as trees or an ice path? It basically comes to city council and they approve,
And
and that's the discussion.
Told your person that,
Pardon?
you told the person that contacted you
I
that?
think so, I'm not remembering who it was right at this exact
Yeah.
moment, but.
All right, so we'll wait to hear.
But I think it's gonna be you guys who initiates the request. It was a hair in my, oh, it's out there.
You
That's
guys
why I called
being
it.
soccer.
No, I'm not with soccer anymore. I'm Parks Board.
Oh,
I just know that they mention it, they keep mentioning it informally. So if we hear about it officially, we should make them come through the pipeline.
absolutely.
Just like
Yeah.
any other.
And then if it's not permanent, then you can just give that direction.
Yep.
You know, that input, let me go carefully, that input to Mike. If it's something that's a permanent structure, then it's city land with permanent structure that needs to go through council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like anything else. Okay. Look, anything else, Mike?
I don't think so. Oh, one small thing, Gail called me today,
Thank you.
I can't remember her name. Her husband passed away, and his favorite place on the planet was the dog park. And she would like to donate a bench to put in the dog park. And I told her that was fine. Do it, and I'm gonna help her do it.
Yeah.
I thought I'd You guys don't object to a bench in the dog park, do you?
No, his name was Kyle.
Yep.
Yeah,
Who is this person? Kyle, who? Kyle,
Norman's dad,
yes.
little
Yeah,
brown
Norman.
wire terrier.
Anyway, but he was up there a lot.
Yeah.
Kyle, I don't know his last name.
Johnson.
I do,
Kyle Johnson.
I do think though it needs to go through Public Works or, you know, Parks Board so that it, I mean, we've had a lot of requests for parks benches, they're great. It should just have a process that's, and if it goes through you, fine with it.
Yeah,
You can
well,
handle it.
yeah, I think if it just goes
Yeah.
through Mike, we're okay.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
And I will just, since we're talking about the dog park, I will tell you that we got a garbage can out there a few weeks ago, and it's getting wheeled out on the garbage days, and it appears anecdotally to have made a huge difference in the amount of people. Has two positive impacts. More people are picking up their poop because it's obvious and easier where to put it. And when people drop off bags to be used, they're still new bags 2 hours later rather than new bags mixed with bags of dog poop, which for some reason, everybody was just dumping it in those. You got about 2 hours max. Somebody bring an entire garbage bag full of grocery bags up, and it was good for about 2 hours.
Hang it on the fence, and then somebody would put their dog
So
poop
where
in
are you
there.
putting a can now, like out in the middle of the dog?
No, it's inside, it's just
By
as
the
you go
gate.
inside the
Oh,
gate, right
yeah.
by the pole.
And garbage comes 3 times a week, I found out.
Twice, Monday and Thursday.
He told me Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, doesn't matter.
Thursday,
Anyway.
today, we're wheeling it out.
Just want to go back to the bench. I'm assuming that her name is Shannon, I think.
Yep.
And I'm assuming she wants to have something written on the bench.
Yeah, it'll be.
Does that need to come through, so it's like some, I don't know,
Well,
come through the council or the park?
I think it's gonna say in loving memory
I
or
know.
something, but
I think,
if
I
there's
think we just let
some
Mike
kind of a
handle it.
political statement on
But-
it,
Yeah.
it's probably.
Just saying, it could happen.
But Mike can shut that down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He'll manage, make sure
Mike,
it's a.
Mike can handle
Is
it.
that a sign? Does that need the
But-
sign?
No, I'm not sure, but what I'm trying to do is look at, and keep in mind, my job is process, right? So I look at it and say, is this one of those things where we'll come back, if the wrong person's in enrolled, we have just a single checkpoint, is that a problem or not? So I think there's wisdom in having staff run that through Parks Board, just as a sign off.
If that's a point, I mean, that's not a big deal.
So
You could bring it back to us with the wording.
we
of
have
the
had
fact that-
Sure.
two soccer-related players, teenage deaths over 15 years. Not during the play or anything.
Is soccer that dangerous? No.
Okay, it's deaths of soccer players, and there are a couple moms that would like to have benches. They've talked about it, they haven't really done it. It would be a great thing, but I do think that,
We need to do it the same today, tomorrow, and 4 months
right,
from
you
now.
need to, because you don't, I mean, there's one of them, she's real spunky. Who knows what she's put on a park bench? So, you know, you don't want to be limiting, you want to encourage it, but I do think that and Mike's a person that will know what has to come through, right?
I mean,
So are you recommending that it does
my main
come
concern is
and
that
we
if
have a
it's-
vote, or
Yeah.
that Mike
and it'll
can?
last.
And it'll last,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't say something,
Vulgar.
my husband
Well-
told y'all to F off
No, it's,
from the
that's
dog
not.
park.
I'd sit on that bench, no.
You know, if we're
So,
gonna get
that's
a lot
all.
if we're gonna get a lot of requests, so we probably ought to have some.
We ought to get a process that can be the same today, tomorrow, and 4
Yes,
months from
it
now.
ought to be a
Right.
standardized.
Those two moms I just said,
Should be a
I'm sure we'll pass
standardized
it,
bench.
just come in.
Because what you don't wanna have is everybody picking their own style bench, and after a while you have
No, and I'm.
four different
I'm
styles
picking her
of
bench
soccer
up for
field.
Yeah,
So-
so this is great.
Yeah.
So maybe you can come back with us on a recommendation for style and,
Take a picture of it, and
Okay.
let me know.
I think that the bench has to be approved by Public Works.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So we
And-
don't need to take a vote here, but Mike can, I just wanna make sure we're clear on the process.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
question.
good with Mike, however, the mayor did say, that's Mike. You can have people change, so when Mike, you don't leave, but when you do leave the city, we'll have a different process.
No, we want to have the same process all the way through,
Yeah.
so.
You can't ever leave, by the way.
What's that?
You can't
Yeah.
ever leave, Mike.
I'm not gonna leave.
You're running the city.
Okay, you know, we need to move on. It's,
Oh, my God.
5 after 7 o'clock here. let's move on.
Annual park workday,
Annual park workday.
blowing this off.
We keep blowing that one off. We need to talk about that one. Mike, I'm just gonna throw this out. Are we going to include the Arbor Day as part of an annual park workday, or are we gonna go separately? Two separate
I kind
events.
of thought, and this was the conversation I heard you guys have, was that we were gonna combine Arbor Day and Earth Day and do them all at once.
Okay? Is everybody okay with that idea?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mike, do you need assistance in the planning of this and of this event?
No, as we get closer, I think the day we talked about was like June 15th.
Okay.
Was what we discussed.
So Sunday.
Yeah, as we get closer to it, I think it's probably gonna look something like what we did last year. We're gonna plant some trees. I might have, so we'll probably need the same amount of volunteer help as we did, similar to what we did last year.
Okay. So a lot of that volunteer help was, from planning from this board.
Sure.
And so do we have somebody here that would like to volunteer to be the point person to work with Mike on this project?
What, I'm sorry, I'm unclear in regards to what we're doing.
It'll be a tree planting
It'll be
program.
basically, I mean, in terms of
How many trees?
recruiting the volunteers, somewhere around 25.
Okay.
But, so like half of last year.
Okay.
But I mean, I think from the board's perspective, what we need is, as we get closer, do the social media, get the word out there. That's all we gotta do.
And get the
Red Lodge,
volunteers.
people like that stuff, they show up. We saw that last year.
Yeah, and do we have to go through the exact same process as we did last year with the waivers?
No,
Okay,
I mean, this is not a
We're not giving-
sanctioned Arbor Day deal. I mean, it will be our
got
Arbor
it,
Day
okay, got it. The
celebration.
foundation is not involved
We're
in, okay,
we're not
Okay.
involved with the foundation at all.
And we're not gonna have a tree distribution
No,
thing like we had last year with,
So the
in
work-
association with the nursery, correct?
yeah, we're not.
We're not gonna do
We're
that.
just planting 25 trees.
okay.
So we-
And then are we so we'll need volunteers for tree planting, but also volunteers for cleanup?
So workday, this is what I recommend. We all have a park or two that we ambassador for, and we have user groups, and we should reach out to them as part of the advertising in advance and say, this is the day we would like you to go to coal miners and clean up. And there's usually like 7 or 8 people that go up there and walk around and pick up garbage and pull stuff out of the
That's
creek.
not
And
necessarily on the same day as the Arbor Day thing.
Oh, I thought
But-
someone
well, that's-
said,
That's why I asked the
I thought
question, are we
this is
combining
workday.
these or not?
No, I would not.
I wouldn't
Oh.
combine them either. That was my concern,
No.
sorry, okay.
all right,
So Arbor Day is June 15th,
Yep,
okay?
and Earth Day.
And Earth
Oh,
Day.
Earth Day.
Well,
That's a
Okay.
Sunday.
Okay.
Everybody knows that's a Sunday.
So
But
we used
June
to
14th,
combine, we used to
We had
do,
15th last year.
we used to do Earth Day with Workday.
Yeah,
So, here's what happens with Workday. If it's planned too early, we have snow and it gets put off. If it's while school's still going on,
How
We
about
don't
if you
get
just have each ambassador do their own work day and they do it whenever it works for that park?
right, but I would say it should still be like a June event.
I was gonna suggest May, because I just wonder if people will be vacationing into June, if maybe there'd be more people around, I don't know. But we got a lot last year for the tree planting, so,
Yeah, once you start getting too late in the summer, people have plans.
If we have a cleanup month instead of a cleanup day, and then,
They're gonna do theirs before.
That's an idea. I think that's not a
Their
bad
work
idea.
day,
You have a cleanup month
their
and then
season
let
starts
the
early.
individuals who
Yeah.
have a park schedule sometime during that.
and if the weather messes that day up, you still got 27 more to work with.
Yeah,
So Mike, you haven't been here, Sarah's been here, probably the only one that overlapped with this, but we used to have a work day, a lot of work. We had people do face painting and stuff in Lions Park, and we had food.
we had a Earth Day block
We
party
had an Earth Day
after the
block party
cleanup.
where we had like food and drinks for anybody that got together on this day. So it was a little more formal, but I will actually say was hard to pull off because weather affected it. And really what you want is a cleanup day where people clean up. That's all you need,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yeah.
just people going out there. So there may be some that say,
Yeah,
well, you
that's why
don't
I
do what
think-
you used to do, but I don't think we need to go through the formality of.
I don't know that we need to do the block party. I think that is fine to skip. I do like the idea of it all being on the same day, just because it's easier to coordinate supplies. I like the idea of having,
Energy.
yeah, and that's a good point. You know, we had T-shirts one year. You could do some easy refreshments back at the park after, just the camaraderie of everyone kind of doing it. You just carve out 2 hours, I don't know. And it was nice to be able to say, like, you 6 people just go to this park, you go here, you go here, you go here. But
If you had the barbecue and burgers on the last day and everybody who went out and cleaned up a park any day during the month and blah, 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 this is the
yeah,
day we
you
all
could
get
still
together to
recognize
celebrate
it.
it.
And
Yeah.
have a gathering,
Yeah,
And
I
then they
like
feel
that better.
guilty
Yeah.
if they show up and get a burger and they
Yeah.
didn't go clean.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you
Yeah.
know what? I think people are gonna go pick up garbage, will take their own trash bags. Then we just tell them where they can dump it off.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
then we can contact with Public Works, pick them up, so.
Yeah.
So sometime in May.
it,
Why don't we have
it's
May
kinda
be
I'll
nice
tell you what,
Park
this,
Day cleanup month
you know what,
moving
by
forward.
user groups
a
and
lot of
volunteers.
this takes a lot of planning. May is next month.
That's true.
I don't think it'll take that, it's not usually that heavy of a lift.
Okay. Do you want to volunteer to?
Sure. Yeah, we just need to
spearhead
get
this?
buy-in from the rest of the park owners, that they're willing to also recruit and schedule.
Can we get another member to agree to assist Sarah with this?
I bet Mary Dell would help.
Okay.
I'm gonna take care of the dog park. That's my big responsibility.
Okay.
I've been talking about that to everybody. As soon as the snow melts, when we can see all the poop, there's legion over there, I'm sure.
That's fine, I think we can all, you know, we all have a park
So you're
area.
gonna
that
take
we're
it from
talking-
Sarah?
call
Yeah,
it?
that's my park, but
And
go
don't-
for it, go
no,
for it.
that's fine, no.
I don't need to
And-
clean up
and
with
you
the
have to
whole,
take part that's
I'm just
not-
kidding. I could take a different park.
Okay, so
You
we
can
have,
also, you can also help.
we have
out.
Sarah's gonna head this up, you're gonna talk to Mary
I'll
Dell
help you. I'll help
Okay.
and Ann, so we got 3 of
Okay,
you
of
working
course.
on it.
I'll help her.
You can come back to the meeting in May and tell us
Okay.
what we're doing.
Well,
And if that's supposed to
Or
be,
you-
I can put this in mayor's comments at council meeting. May is gonna be Parks Cleanup Month. Word to come about what we're gonna do at the end of the month to get together and celebrate or something, but put it on your, May,
Sounds
There you
great.
go,
we're
sounds
doing a
good.
cleanup.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. Are we ready?
The Rotary Park, is that you?
Yeah, it's me. I guess it's me, I'm not on the list, but I volunteered to do it, so yeah.
The dog park is.
Okay, let's move on. Park addresses, any movement on that?
Yeah, I think Tom sent something out. I couldn't find out my email, but I saw it one day. Did he send it to you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which,
The park addresses?
Whoever you are.
Tom put that together, I saw it.
yeah, Tom, yeah, oh, yeah, I got that. We got all the addresses. Did I?
Yeah, and I tried to find it to print it out for you tonight, but I couldn't find it on my computer.
I can, yeah, so we have all the addresses.
Can you send those out to us?
I will.
You don't have to,
You know what?
you don't have to do it right now.
I think you did too, but the secretary had her hard drive on her computer crash 2 weeks ago, so I've been like in this major void, and I will have that back up before next meeting, but I thought something got sent out. I remember seeing
I
something.
saw it, and
I've got
And
it
then
right here, because he added, there were a couple of things that he added that were not on there. And I can forward this on right now. So Beth added a list, and then we added to Beth's list. I will forward this on to you,
Okay,
Roger.
and I'll distribute it.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Let's we can check that one off. Now, the other one we have is draft board bylaws. I suggest we wait till next month and cover that. Mary Dale will be here, and you and Mary Dale can present that.
That's fine.
We
And I'll
have,
read the markup.
we have copies right here. Debbie might take one,
I've got
Paper
one.
copy, copy.
and they have the red lettering, wording on it. Future agenda items, anything on there?
Well, we're so busy. That's a huge, it's gonna be a huge agenda in the coming months. It's exciting.
Yeah, everything's rolling
Yeah,
over
but you
now,
know
because
what?
we're not getting things
It's all
finished.
about getting things done, though, and I think we're mock speed. I've been here for a long time, sitting over there. This is really good. the energy, the momentum, the task-oriented part of this board, to me, is really nice.
We have a lot of, community support and involvement too,
Yes.
much more than I've ever seen, which is really awesome as well.
The thing about Parks and Recreation is always more wants than there are
Yeah.
money. So on future agenda items, I suggest we move, the bylaws to that. And I would like to have a discussion, with the capital improvement plan.
Oh,
the
yeah,
draft plan.
no, I brought that.
We'll just do
I
that
have
next,
up here too, it's,
we'll do that next meeting, Mike.
yeah. And,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's
It is
really, we threw everything at the wall,
Yeah,
and so I think we're good. And that's kind of what the purpose of the document is,
yeah.
you know.
But I think it's just good for us to review our portion of it. So, all right.
The only thing I'd like to add, since we have the people we need to have in on this conversation, I'm all support of tennis, the pickleball, everything moving, but I do think that before people raise money, we need to be clear on what their obligations are. And when I hear somebody saying we're creating bylaws, that is an organization, and we need to be consistent with all
I think you need to get
organizations.
Dennis involved in the conversation,
What's that? Need to go ahead?
the lawyer, our attorney.
Yes, he has to be involved.
Yes,
Yeah.
He can wade through this very quickly and
Yeah.
efficiently and tell you, don't you think, Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor?
I think
That should be
we
the-
need to
that
understand,
should
like,
be the
why
function of
some
it.
user groups have no, and I know that False is now trying to get a 501c3. They've been really loosey-goosey for a long time, and now they're trying to do
Who
something.
you said?
False, Frisbee golf,
Oh, okay.
disc golf, I'm sorry, I call it Frisbee golf, disc golf. And
And I have a concern, by the way, just with, and again, this comes back to this permanent, this process for things that are going out.
right,
Because right now, there are holes in disc golf that are there by squatters' rights. And so, like, when they came up with this tennis thing, you can't put 4 tennis courts there because we have a disc golf hole there. It's like, nah, that doesn't fly.
well,
That wasn't part of the original design?
Nope.
and they can be,
I think
and
it just spontaneously.
they can be moved, if they have a little money thrown their way, they can be moved and so forth. They
We can do it
with us.
for the greater good altogether.
Right.
Once.
So are you
The
suggesting?
one thing I wanted to add to the budget conversation,
I
just
think
to
it's a
be,
city item. I think we can't
Let's
solve it.
Let's stay on task here for a minute. We're talking about future agenda items. Are you suggesting that we have an item that we discuss some kind of procedure for these quasi-organizations or organizations that want to get projects done?
No, I don't wanna add that to the agenda right now.
I think that's the city agenda, and I have a meeting with Dave, Mike, Brian Dennison with a note that said we can pick best brains, but it's basically for consistency across ice, pickleball, Whistler Observatory,
Exactly.
and so that to me, I think is a need that I heard identified, a red flag identified by somebody in this group that is my action item to take
Okay,
and go come with a recommendation on that.
sounds good.
And I bring that up because Chelsea one time said, oh, and by the way, organizations now need to have a $2 million liability limit, not $1 million. And it was like, when you throw that out, like, it went to deaf ears, and that's a big deal. And these organizations need to know. So what's formality, and we have to be reasonable too.
Well, that should be a
With-
recommendation of the city attorney.
Yeah.
But I just wanna say that I had a real, when they're talking about bylaws, I had some red flags go up, because when they get to be an organization with bylaws, they're gonna have ownership of those pickleball. And when other people wanna play,
No,
I'm-
No, and I think that's part of what Beth's question was, is who
Yeah.
has ownership of
I
the
thought
program
that you have a
capability?
Secretary of State license number. I mean, that's what
no,
bylaws are. You don't do
I'm
bylaws.
piggybacking on your concerns, is that they can have their potlucks, they can have their parties, but as far as.
But we have done things like that, because skate park was put together completely with volunteer money and donors, but that is a city park.
yeah, that's,
And so we just have to map.
I'm just saying, they might have ownership because they're not asking for money. They're raising money, they're donating, they're doing donations, and they're gonna have ownership.
The pickleball folks are basically their goal is to do exactly what we discussed here a month or two ago. They're following the model of what the pool did.
They just want to hurry the process by saying,
And that's
you're waiting
what
on money, let's make the money show up
and
more
that's what I
quickly.
asked.
Okay, I, but
And
still,
That's fine, that's what I'm saying, that's why,
And that's a good model, it works.
it's a good model for getting something built, but it's afterwards, it's the use. And that's where, you know, if they form an association and if they wanna program activities there, then it's a different.
I just wanna,
Yeah,
just think someone should think
but
about it.
that's got, it's a little down the road.
And you know what, it's always a difficult discussion, because when I met with soccer 2 months ago, and I was saying that the city is probably gonna help mow up there this summer, they're gonna start to take over mowing, and I was saying that we have some money in our budget to do some improvement to the sprinkler systems, but eventually, that's all owned by the city, and they went, owned by the city? And I'm like, you've known this all along, that's on
And
city
it is in
land.
the agreements up front that we have,
Yeah.
where we let them
And
know.
they know they have an MOU, and they are the first priority user group, and they have their insurance and all that. But sometimes you just have to let them know, you don't own these courts, you don't own this field, this is city.
Yeah.
You don't own Van Dyke Park.
And
So
what-
so all I wanna do is when when a group is gonna raise $100,000 to $600,000, we need to be real clear about
Yeah,
what they are.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
In your long-term priorities discussion,
mhm,
I just wanted to raise just the reminder that if we get this Brewery Hill thing, that's something that's probably next year is gonna take the lion's share of park-type money. So I don't think there'll be any new projects that year. We'll do maintenance. We're not gonna not change the oil in the cars we bought.
But isn't our match is like,
$200,000.
our match is?
Our match is $270, I think, to $350, depending on where
what's
it's coming
total,
from.
what's the total estimate of the project?
1.4, I mean, it's got two commas in it.
Yeah,
And we can't use like the grant money because we can't match state with state funds.
right,
So now Mike did send me some stuff today on, there's a Safe Highways, which is federal money,
right.
that we may be able to look at for that, or we may have some other places. Again, it's money we want to snag if we can grab it.
So,
The little bit I read on that, I think it'd be a really good.
Yeah, I said, that's federal funds, so we can use that, but we can't we can't do the match of state funds with state dollars.
our match is 20%.
13.4% or 13.7, but again, of a seven-figure
Yeah,
cost.
all right, we're adjourned.
All right, it was good.
That's good to know.
Our
I mean,
max
it's
is
good
like
to know
130.
going into next year, it's like, we're gonna be focusing on